Okay, it's recording now. I'm going to mute myself, and Toby, then you just like introduce this whole channel and what you want Dad to do, and then Dad will start talking.
Okay. So here we go. We got a conversation going here with Dad Williams and Toby, and I'm a little out of breath here because I'm going on a walk, but we're going to try to do a Zoom from Illinois to Michigan and just kind of get caught up here. How you doing, Dad?
Okay.
We're trying to build some content for Dad's YouTube channel that he's volunteered to begin.
Just like I volunteered for the
whole procedure.
the whole cancer thing too.
Oh, you have cancer? Tell us about that.
Oh, brother.
Hey, so you've got treatment starting on Monday. Is that the latest update?
Yes, it is. I'm supposed finally got him convinced to get me on the schedule.
Treatment for what?
I don't know what it is. Chemotherapy
For what?
for pancreatic cancer.
Nobody knows this. You got to introduce that.
Oh, really? Everybody knows this.
No.
Oh, well, we'll figure it out soon enough. Where's that port at?
Right here on the chest.
Can we see it?
I mean, undress.
Well, do you have to peel it down or what?
He's still under a bandage.
Oh,
About
it
as big
is.
about as big as a nickel. And then the second incision is in the jugular vein in the neck. And then they feed the tube from the port up into the jugular vein in the neck. And it becomes a permanent part of the body. And
Oh, the tube does?
Yeah. Well, it's in, they'll remove it when they're done with using it. But the port itself is solid silicone. And then it has a tube on the back of it that connects to the vein. And they can puncture that silicone hundreds of times without it ever leaking. And so you have to have one of these when you get this chemotherapy, so it can flow in there like it does. Like the treatment on Monday is 400 minutes in this, what they call a what? Short stay room. You're in there and they're putting in 3 different chemos. They have a time limit on each one of them, so many minutes of this one, followed by so many minutes of that one, and so many minutes of that one. Then when that's done, they put in another, well, they take out the intravenous line they've been using out of the port, and they insert a right angled needle in the port, and it goes to a pump that's in a fanny pack. And then and they put the chemical in that pump, and then I have to wear that fanny pack for 49 hours. And so following Monday's all day visit, I have to go back at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. Then they remove that. And then I'm free from drugs for about 9 days or whatever, actually the end of 2 weeks. And so then they do blood tests again at that point, and any adjustment to the chemical they do, and they start it over again. Every 2 weeks, I have this session in the room for, well, 400 minutes, whatever time that is, 5 hours, 6 hours, then followed by this pump implant or placement. And I don't know anything about the pump. I've not even seen it yet. I'll see it Monday, I guess. But anyway.
But it's all buried. The pump is in the pack, in the fanny pack?
Yeah. And so I asked her, well, she said, when it's empty, you have to come back and we take it out. So I said, how do I know it's empty? And she said, there's a little alarm on it. It'll signal when it's done. I think if I can visualize it right, what it's doing in the room in the hospital is they set the drip on the intravenous line to so many drips per minute. And that's how they measure how much chemical is going in, into the system at that point. But anyway. And so then
have they
what?
picked the cocktail of the drip?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all based. And when you go back to it, I mean, it took 8 weeks for them to fully diagnose it, what it was. And they got all the pictures, and they got all the tests, the CAT scans and the MRIs, the PET scans, all these things, just so full of these stupid tests. And finally, I mean, they had it pretty well figured out, calculated what it was. There's blood tests that they took where it would show spots of cancer cells, not really in cancer cells, but chemicals produced by the cancer to indicate that it was maybe cancer. But they still were not definite as to what it was. And so they had to then do biopsy of the tissue. And so then they started these 3 horrible biopsies. One of them, they're needle biopsies, very sharp needles that they penetrate through the skin. 2 of them they do. They penetrate right through the skin, and they're 6 or 8 inches long, and they're hollow. And they go down in to the tissue, and it draws actual cancer tissue into the needle. And then they retract, they bring it out, and then they send that to the lab, and that's how it's done. That's how they determine what the cancer cell is. And the reason they have to do that is these chemotherapy drugs, some of them split cells of the cancer cell. They actually split the cell so it can't reproduce, so it dies. Some of the cancers that can be in the pancreas are fibrous. That means they have strands in them, not so much cells. But that's a different chemical that can tear that fiber apart. So they have to know whether that chemical needs to be used. And so then once you get the tissue scan and everything, then the oncologist can determine what the serum is in the solution, the chemical is in the solution that they give. And then after, I think it's 3 sessions, so it'd be 2, 4, 6 weeks, they do an analysis again of it and see the extent of the death of the cells, and how else it's affecting the body. They do heart tests, they do all of that because, and that's when your hair probably begins to fall out and your nails, sharpen up like a witch's nails or whatever it does. Anyway, and they have all these side
about that.
Yeah. And there's also, there's always have to begin to use this skin lotion and all of that. Another side effect is thrush in the mouth. Anyway, got all these fun things to look forward to. But they say
they all set in at the same time?
Well, they gradually set in. But they say the worst symptom side effect is the fatigue, where you begin to really feel exhausted all the time. And that's the problem that they're monitoring in the heart. In the deep heart muscle, it's a strain. It puts a strain on the deep heart muscle. And so that's what they have to monitor all the time to make sure that it's not being weakened, because they have to have the pump in the body in order to move the chemical around. So that's another side effect. But anyway, so all those side effects will start maybe gradually, maybe hard. So I don't know anything about them. Never been there.
How about when, though, like from the first treatment to when those first side effects might start coming into play? What do you think?
I looked it up. I mean, I've read several people's opinion, and it's different for different people. some of them are right on the first week when when you got all the drugs. It said it's actually the first week is the worst, second week is a little better, and third week is, he said that'd be the week where you would, or not, we don't go 3 weeks, but anyway, there's a period in there where you can feel like you can get up and go out, whatever that means. So,
Huh.
but it's interesting that one of the biopsies went in right through the belly. Then they did another biopsy, which goes down the esophagus and into the stomach. And it's got everything on it. It's got a little camera on it. It's got a light on it. And it has these sharp needles on it. And then it goes through the walls of the stomach and into the pancreas. And then they take the tissue out of there and they back the thing back out again and all of that. Well, when they got that one in there, apparently they hadn't read my case study, because in 1967, half of the stomach was removed. So ever since any of you were around, I've only had half a stomach. And so they couldn't penetrate to the pancreas because there was no stomach there. So they had to back that one out. And then they had to come up again 2 or 3 days, 4 days later, sedate me again, and then do another long needle. And that was the one they finally got. And so the first of the month was when they actually knew what the tissue was. So, and then they could prescribe the chemical and set up the visits and all that time. So
that was the first. That was the 1st of September.
Yeah. Up all the way back to way back to August.
31st or 21st.
21st of what?
July.
Oh, the 21st of July.
It's your first test.
Was the first test. And, the way they found it in the first place was I'd gotten a letter in May, June or May or somewhere in there, where the cardiology department at the hospital had sent out a letter to all the patients that had this bicuspid heart valve replaced with a tricuspid heart tissue valve that's made from, mine was made from a membrane out of a cow's stomach. But anyway, but they said that they pulled that off the market, that whole valve, because of early failure that wasn't expected. Because when they did the surgery on me, they said it could be 10 to 15 years before you see wear on this. Because it's not an actual valve, it's just tissue that is tied, and then it's tied to a ring with stitches, and that then ring is tied to the walls of the artery. And so that is not what's going to deteriorate. It's going to, they call it wear and tear. And so if that starts, then you have to have it either another valve installed. You can't really repair it, or repeat the surgery. And so I got a hold of my doctor, and he had said they'd received the same warning. And so he set up the exam so that I would go in, and they did what they call an echocardiogram, where they can measure how much blood is passing through the valve and how much is not, and passing back through, and if there's any leakage in the valve. And then there's another one, but the bicuspid valve that I'm born with, it's a genetic disease that I'm born with. And apparently it's because I don't have 2 genes. Like my dad didn't have those 2 genes, so he had a bicuspid heart valve. And that's what caused them in the womb, 2 of the leaves in the valve to grow together. So I actually had just 2 instead of 3. Anyway, so that's another disease, but that has another part of that part of the disease is in the what they call the aorta chair, or the seat of the aorta, and that can expand because the gene that I'm missing is a elasticity gene or something. But anyway, that can expand and actually at some point come to a bubble. So I've been on a yearly what's it called, CAT scan, to see if there's any change in the size of that artery. And it was during that CAT scan when the cardiologist saw this spot on the pancreas. And so then he just sent out the alarm to the general doctor and then over to the pancreatic doctor, whatever they're called. And then they set up all these tests and we started the process of seeing what that is. And what that been, I mean, the actual thing that it turned out to be, that's called an incidental discovery of the tumor or of the cancer, which is rare because it really doesn't make any symptoms or show any signs until it develops, until it grows, and then it can grow without really showing any other side effects. But once it gets to a certain stage and then it passes out into the liver and into the other organs, and you go into the lungs, it can go into the esophagus and all that, that's when it should really start showing the symptoms, because it shuts down, it squeezes the bile duct coming from the liver, and the chemical in the liver turns your skin yellow, your eyes, you can see the yellowing in your eyes, and they begin to have all these pains. Anyway, but it was sort of a miracle that it was seen at a very early stage. And so that's where they are. And it's called, when they finally got the tissue down there, it's called a resectable pancreatic adenocarcinoma. And the word resectable means it can be operated on. It can be removed by surgery. And so that's the goal of this whole, it's called a curative process that I'm in right now, where they're trying to shrink the tumor that's there and also to shrink or to kill any little cells that have escaped and are in the blood or whatever in the body. And so that's what they're trying to kill with this process. So,
Has that ever happened before? I've heard that pancreatic cancer has actually never been cured.
oh
Is
no,
that true?
no.
So it
Every
has.
time it has been cured, and whenever it's called resectable, that means it possibility of being cured, can be removed by surgery. And once it's removed by surgery, if they're able to kill, then they'll put radiation on it and other thing and kill any remaining cells, then it is a cure. And somebody who just told the other day, some friend who, Mom, has no sign of cancer after 7 years of
That was-
So
having
that's
it.
not
That was it.
remission.
Who?
That
That
was
was
Aunt
not
Dee's brother,
Oh, yeah,
Aunt Dee's brother, his friend.
had a friend. Yeah, okay.
So that's not remission. That's a cure.
Yeah,
But it is rare
it's rare, but it is known to be.
because of
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, and typically because of the incidental find, because it was
Yeah.
found early enough. And so that was, I mean, if there's comfort in this, that's it. I mean, right now,
Yeah.
I mean, that's very comforting, in fact. So, and remarkable, you know, just a wonderful thing that the Lord allowed it to happen at that point, the discovery to be there, that there's a possibility of it.
So if your kids are be genetically prone to this also, how do we screen for that?
Well, October the 5th, they begin a gene, they're doing a genome on me. They're, charting all the genes in my body to see what it is. And usually, they're only very few causes of the pancreatic cancer. One of them is genetic. And another one is tobacco products
And alcohol,
and alcohol.
alcohol number one.
And so it's, that's the thing. So they want to scan to see if I have the genetic cancer gene, because they think I do, because Dad died of leukemia and Judy died of melanoma. And so it's in the family. So then they want to test my genome, and then they'll determine if it's there. Then you can have a study of, I think each of you could have a study of your own genome to know if you were prone to it. But then you also have to monitor it. I just saw a film today of a guy that was laying in a hospital bed. He did actually 11 YouTube tapes. And he described his situation, that he was 38 years old, and he had real good physicals every year. And the reports all came back really good. And then all of a sudden, he started having some symptoms of this cancer, and it was already stage 4, which means that it's in other organs.
Yeah.
And he would kind of, be crying the fact you can't do anything about it really then when it's in stage 4. I mean, you just can lessen the pain as much as you can, and cancer, you can live with very little pancreas. It can destroy a whole lot of the pancreas, but once it gets to the liver, it's very quick, and it's very sudden. So
what was he saying? That he
Well,
would recommend people?
he was just telling everybody on on his views that, he was today's this misery, tomorrow's this misery, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just charting a journal for the camera.
Yeah.
But anyway, and that's typically, every time you hear about it, it's, late stages before you even feel symptoms.
Yeah.
Anyway.
See, I think something, kind of like what we're doing here to talk about it, and not just for you to be able to journal the process, but to, if you can go through it with the hope that you've lived with your whole life, now you got this to go through, but you still have that hope. That's a exciting appeal to hearing your story also, and but just to learn along with you what you're learning there is, I know the other day when we talked was super intriguing, and it's intriguing right now. So thanks for being willing to share.
The other thing that's so interesting, and it's, the doctors have noted it and asked me some questions about it, is the whole stomach situation that I have, because I've never known what after you have a meal. Because when they put the stomach back into the duodenum, is what they do, or duodenum, or whatever it's called, after they sectioned it to take out what was ulcerated of my stomach, it takes out the lower sphincter valve. It's the valve that, after it's not regurgitated, but agitated in your stomach a while, it's then the valve opens up and puts it in the duodenum. But I've never known that since 1967. Because called a dumping syndrome is what I have. There's no valve. And so it goes immediately from the stomach into the duodenum. So I don't, not the small intestine. It's before the small intestine. Anyway, so there's that whole aspect of the case. And then them not being able to use the stomach for that, one tissue sample was another interesting thing for the doctors, for that technician to face. And so those are things that, make this whole thing unique. It's been part of me all this time. And so I can't, I mean, nobody can share their symptoms or their experience, stomach experience with me, you know, because they haven't done it. They haven't faced it. That in itself is a rare experience, because the surgeon that I was listening to today, talking about putting it all back together after they do the surgery down there, he said there's some bodies that will accept this process, and there are other bodies that will reject this process. And so we can't be guaranteed every time that it will work. I mean, not work, but I mean it will function. Even
This
at the
chemo
time that the
process?
surgery was done in 1967, I wasn't expected to live more than 5 years after the surgery was done then.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's been remarkable that whole time. So, you know, this also is very special and unique in that sense.
Yeah, let's keep the streak going.
Yeah. Anyway,
I always thought you cut half your stomach out with a chainsaw.
no, that was the other leg.
Oh, okay. All right. So Monday's a big day.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but Monday's the day. We
What
begin
you
the
can
drill.
do is make sure to take some selfies of that fanny pack at least, and get that posted on here.
I don't know where I don't know where I'm going to wear it or how you sleep. I got all that to learn yet. Having
So
enough trouble sleeping
you get
without
that
it.
to wear around until Wednesday, or you just get that for the 6 to 9 hours?
No, I get that for the 49 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, you wear it out. And I saw a man come into the hospital the other day, and he had something that looked like that draped around the front of his neck. I don't know if that's where you wear it or
I've seen that before.
that's up. That's way up. I mean, that's by the port. Port is way up in the chest. It's probably 2 inches, or no, it's right on the collarbone almost.
Okay.
So.
He's just trying to get it in there quicker. You ever seen that picture of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson?
No.
We're gonna have to get that for you. He knows how to wear a fanny pack.
So what time on Monday does all this start?
Well, it starts at 8 o'clock, and they're going to do a bunch of blood tests at 8 o'clock. But she said on the next round, I have to have all the blood work done before the appointment for the drip, because they have to know if they have to modify and have to get all that done. But this doesn't matter. This is a base. They're setting a baseline with this test. So the doctor doesn't see this really, it just goes in the record.
Hey, Dad, did they tell you anything about visitors or people that are you like supposed to avoid people, or what's the whole worry about germs?
In the room or here? No, I haven't had any of that yet. And I read things where you're not supposed to sleep with your mate, and you're supposed to, when you're taking the chemical treatment, you're supposed to, if you're on a public sewer system, you should flush the toilet twice. All that kind of thing. So I don't know what all that is yet. They haven't talked anything about that yet. But they did talk about whether or not you can flush the toilet or whether you can't flush the toilet. So whether the systems work in that direction or in that direction. So I got a batch of pills for one and a batch of pills for the other. So anyway.
You got to take them both.
No, you determine what you got and then you take accordingly. It's like it was sort of like it right at your, before I got the appointment, it was kind of like do it yourself chemotherapy. because it's done. There's a cancer center behind the hospital. That's where I had to go for the meetings and all of that. And then there's a treatment center for cancer in the hospital. And they're two different entities. And so the doctor, when he prescribes the treatment, he has to sign the form physically, can't be a stamped signature. He has to sign the form. And apparently he didn't realize he had to go to the hospital to do it. And so they couldn't find him to schedule it. So they had to finally found him and got him to go over and sign it just last Friday. So anyway, then they got it scheduled. And so then they booked the calendar. It's called My Chart in the hospital for when the appointments are going to be for the 2 weeks then, the 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later, whatever it is. And the Wednesday appointments, they're all booked in there. And so then it shows up as a reminder for you to keep the appointment.
Can you take a screenshot or something of that My Chart? And
No, that thing is about 50 pages long now. Has everything I've ever had done in the hospital on it. It has all the appointments, all of the films are in it. I can't view them, but they're in the chart, so doctors can view them.
mhm.
All the visits, office visits, all of that stuff is all charted. And the problem is with the cancer center, they have their own charting system and it doesn't go into the My Chart. And so they have to communicate between one another, the doctors. They have to read both charts. So
So what
a
are you
bit
gonna
complicated.
get? You're going to get prompts or texts or something sent to you reminding you to come in on Monday, and like you're going to forget. But
Yeah. Yeah, I already got the one for Wednesday. Reminding you, your appointment is at 7 o'clock at night on Wednesday. No.
we need your fanny pack back.
Yeah. We need to refill the jug.
All right. Well, maybe we can talk sometime next week if you're up for it.
Okay. Give it a shot.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
See you
See ya.
later, Toby. Enjoy your walk.
Oh, it's all over now.
Okay, good.
He was sitting still there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. See ya.
Okay. Bye.